morning.
Morning.
I mean, this has been a long time coming. I know our station spoke with you in the summer about some the necessary need for funding here. How does it feel to now be here today offering the funding that has been needed for quite some time?
It's like a dream come true. Couldn't be better. You heard me saying earlier that our province is focusing on full continuum care with a laser focus for recovery. So we're building a recovery-oriented system care that covers all the way from prevention, intervention, treatment to recovery. So this is a great example. Like this is an EMS-led sort of initiative that, in partnership with community here, build the program from the community right on the blood reserve, and you can see their wraparound service for that is far more effective than you put people into emergency hospitals and put them out of the community here. I get this overwhelming sense of community care. That is people that are treating others. I think I hear you were sharing me earlier about your dad was one of the first patients that went through this. So everybody treating people need service is like your own family, and that's profound.
I've always said this is one of the most innovative initially treatment programs I've ever seen. It's a great model. I think it's a great model to hear about the stories about that. Yep. Are we going to see this model imitated in other parts of the province? Because I think it seems to be pretty effective.
We were talking about this earlier. I wanted them to share their experience on the broad level. I know Jason is sitting on our provincial advisory council on this. They are tasked to develop a provincial strategy by June of this year. So program like this, I can tell you, I'll go whole heart to support it, because it is quite different than the traditional approach. One that involves community, that one involves a made in the community solution. Oftentimes it's far more effective than something else somebody else prescribed for you. So I'm a social work background. I worked over close to 30 years in the community side of the story. I wholeheartedly believe this is a better way of changing lives. You're hearing Martin talking about it's a big deal. It's a real deal, because in the end of the day, treatment is only a beginning of a recovery journey. It's a life-changing experience. When you change that, you ought to change along with your natural support system. That is your community. So having this kind of a wraparound response with a medical supervised detox sort of equipped it with that, it gives it that much closer to real life help. And I think it's wonderful. If other parts of the province want to learn this, good on them. Okay, yeah, go for it.
Given that it works so well, 24 spaces, that's a lot than 6.
Yeah.
There's about 34 people, but they can actually go in and treatment right now in the space, so we're still 10 short. I know that you guys did a lot today, so I'm not knocking that on you, but can we expect maybe even more thoughts about that in the future going forward?
We're doing the best as we can in the quickest way we could. But remind you that when I hear the program here talk about their conversations with other service providers across the province, for instance, pump makers are doing a sort of a protocol with them. That's great news, because in the end of the day, I always believe, we already have so many helpers and agents and players in the field, but it's a heck of a difficult time to coordinate everybody's efforts together. When agencies like this taking a collaborative approach, drawing into others, providers into what they're doing, and to me, that's a great service. It doesn't matter where people live, but when you line up with all those services and treatment, and you have different people pick to choose different part of the continuum to meet their needs. For instance, not everybody need intensive treatment like pump makers will will offer. And not everybody will, will need to travel that far for it. But there are those, that's absolutely the best one for them. And oftentimes in the addiction field, you will see people go in and out different facilities, while they're on the journey of changing. And we all know when you're addicted, it's very difficult to change, but change is possible. But we need to tailor the support around the people. At the end of the day, it's the people and their surrounding community that change. And that's what we need to be focused on.
Any other questions?
So Lisa, there were 475 admissions last year, and there was an increase in overall overdose numbers. Do you have a specific percentage or goal that you would want to hit now that new funding is coming in, or numbers from last year?
I'm going to call Kevin to join us. I can tell you when Kevin shared with me that among the 500 people went through, there are over 70 went to treatment, and they decided to get out of addiction. That's huge. That's huge. So share more.
Sure. And I'm not sure that the percentage is necessarily the way that we want to take a look at this. But if you look at the numbers, and I have some updated, we talked about last year, but if you look at the 14 months that we've been open, we've actually seen 526 total clients. We had 181 were in with emergency overdoses, and that's, again, cutting the emergency room out of the system, coming directly into detox. We had another 345 self-admissions. And it's not just that. It's not just, getting people off drugs and getting them through detox. This program is much more than that. We've seen 150 clients go on for dental care. Again, some of the drugs that they're using do terrible damage to the teeth. And this is all about self-esteem. It's about self-worth. It's about getting back out into the community and feeling good about yourself. So dental care is really important. And a lot of these individuals simply wouldn't get that care if we didn't do it for them or help them in that journey. 241 of those clients that I mentioned received optometry services. They get in to see our physicians here in the clinic whenever they need to, and the physicians visit them right on the unit. We go to ultrasound and x-ray, again, for whatever might be bothering the individual. Every single individual that comes through our program has a full blood workup. Like we're looking at the STBBIs, the Hep C, the HIV, all of that stuff. Again, we're helping people to get well. We're also working with the community and the community agencies, again, to find a way. And just, I mentioned one story earlier today, one positive outcome, but there are countless now good stories to tell about the folks that have gone through this program. And again, ministers, when you walk through, you might hear a baby crying, but these are happy little tots. When I go through there and I see the child admitted back from hospital, because the mom will stay with us for a number of months. Our staff, Kara and her team, work very closely with them. They'll get them on really low doses of the antagonist. They'll get them to a place where they can go deliver their baby, and the child comes out with very, very few symptoms. So the prognosis, the outcomes, they're really good. So it's more than just percentages. It's a program. When we talk about wraparound services, this takes it to a whole different level. So if anybody wants some of those numbers, we can certainly share those with you, but that's how I would answer that question.
Certainly.
You guys take addiction straight from the streets. People can walk in who have addiction still, or get treated. I know a lot of treatment facilities, the first one mentioned is not empty because they take a 3-week waiting period before they let somebody in. This has to be on the drugs for 3 weeks.
Yes.
So for somebody on the street, they have 3 weeks for that service. What are some of the thoughts you might have on that for the future of these kinds of services in the province?
Well, I think the problem is the barriers. Again, I think I mentioned to you folks earlier that I've been in the system for a very long time. I've worked with, large organizations, and we tend to put up barriers to accessing services. And what we've done, and what Jason and his staff have done, is they've knocked those barriers down. People don't need a referral from a physician. They don't need anything. They simply need to want to commit to going through our program, to detox. And that's been working really well. Zero barriers. I've talked to many professionals in the field. I know that's not typical, but we have to do that. Some of our clients don't realize that, and there have been several individuals that are actually overdosed out front of the facility because, okay, let's overdose so we can get in. Well, you don't have to do that. In fact, the majority, as I've just mentioned, 345 were self-admissions. They've simply come in and said, I need to change my life. So you got to get those barriers down to as close to zero as you possibly can. And for us, that's working. That creates some other problems because we talked about numbers. Well, we were funded for 6. We didn't know whether this thing was going to take off, but it certainly did. And, those numbers are huge. But what the team, again, Kara and her staff and Leonard, and, we've had to resort to mattresses. Like, we don't like doing that. We just got a whole shipment of new beds in. But it's a little bit like a MASH unit. It's a little bit like an emergency response to a crisis. And we do what we have to do to ensure that those individuals that want treatment today get treatment. We don't say no if you're willing to come in. And so that's created its own set of problems, but we seem to be working through those.
Okay, we're just going to take one last question. So 5 police officers would be help, but I'm wondering if there's a long-term funding plan in place. Are these permanent jobs? Can you just talk to me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, and that issue was raised to me by the local police chief when I met here a few weeks ago about making sure we have sustainable funding long term. It's an area that we're going to look into to see if we can come to an arrangement long term. But I do think that there may be some merit in working out an arrangement like that in the long term here in the province of Alberta with our Indigenous police services.
How long is these jobs being placed for right now?
Right now, under the existing arrangement, I mean, obviously, some of the contracts are year by year. But again, we want to make sure that we know that our province is dedicated to this. Even in these tough financial times, we found additional resources for our Indigenous police services across Alberta, including the additional 5 spots here for the Blood Tribe Police Service. I think that one of the things that I want to task my department with is looking at long-term sustainable funding for Indigenous policing across the province of Alberta. We don't have that here today, but we're encouraged to make sure that our confidence is there. That's why we're increasing the number of police in the province of Alberta through our Indigenous policing.